Hello, girls, guys, or otherwise. This is Rich with your Witchy Book Club series, the makeup for last week's non video. So, we are going through Modern Magic by Donald Michael Craig. If you do not have a copy, go ahead and get your copy. A link will be provided below. We are going through lesson 7, but before we get into that, let me give a shout out to our Patreon patrons. We have Sophia and Linda. Thank you very much to Sophia and Linda for being patrons on Patreon. If you would like to support the Christo-Pagan church that we are starting, you can go to the link provided below for Patreon, and you can donate as little as $5. Gets you some access to me via Discord. You can see the videos early and whatnot. This one's coming up like the day before. Little update on life. I've been talking about my friend that is moving out of her house that she's had for like, I think it was like 30 years or something like that. Yeah, we finally got her out of the house. We got everything out of the house. A lot of stuff is in storage and whatnot, so I will probably be helping her to move the things from storage into her new home, and getting the new home set up and whatnot. So yeah, I'm still in a little bit of pain, just from carrying a lot of boxes and whatnot. Um, but we're doing okay. We're doing okay, and this is like the first day off that I've had, let's see, in about 3 weeks, where I had like nothing that I was obligated to do. It was quite great. So I spent some time reading this chapter, and I did put it into my phone to have, I think it's Speechbox or Speechbot or something like that, read it back to me. So yeah, I was able to get done with the chapter in a relatively easy fashion, with that assistance. Yeah, just a little bit of life updates there. Anyway, I also wanted to say that if you want to support me as an individual and you would like to get something uh, physical, tangible, for your money, you can always visit the eBay store. The link is provided down below. If you don't have any money to support, then that's fine. You can always support this channel by clicking the subscribe button right down here. Hit that bell notification if you've done all that. Consider leaving a comment if you agree, disagree, or otherwise have anything to add or take away from today's topic, or just to say, hey, how's it going? Always much appreciated. I love reading the comments. I don't always respond. I do need to start doing videos responding to comments and whatnot, because those are just fun to do. Also, what else did I want to say? I wanted to say something else. There was something else. Oh yeah, if you've done all of that, hit that like button or that dislike button. Doesn't matter to me. It all appeases the algorithmic gods of YouTube. All hail the algorithmic gods of YouTube. And if you've done all of that, then you are a fantastic person. Consider sharing this on your social media platforms if that is safe for you to do so. Anyway, getting on with lesson 7, we are over the halfway mark, starting with lesson 7 because there's 12 lessons. So yeah, lesson 7 takes us into the second portion, the I think it's the inner order as it is labeled in this book. We're starting on page 241. And in our grandest of traditions, let me go ahead and read the first sentence of the lesson, and we'll talk about that, and then we're going to just skip around and discuss things. This is going to be very little editing. I'm just going to say that. This is being recorded about 10 to 5. Like I said, kind of a lazy day, kind of just flowing into things, just relaxing and doing some ancestry stuff. Maybe I'll say a little bit more on that in the future, because the 1950 census came out and I'm just like all over ancestry again, just making sure that tree is just pruned just right. Anyway, let's get into this first sentence here. He says, back in lesson 5 of this course, I shared with you the important occult magical secret that whatever is created on the astral plane eventually must manifest in our world, the physical plane. Um, this sets up the chapter nicely, this lesson nicely. Uh, we don't stay on that part for the entirety of the lesson, but it does give a solid foundation to this lesson in general. I do like that he calls back to something that he mentioned before, and going forward, he builds upon that, and I think he builds upon it fairly well. Moving on, also on to 41, he says, plus, ritual magic also uses the assistance of spiritual entities from other planes of existence. I can use other forms of gray magic successfully, but I find them more tedious and a lot less fun. I do find the ritual aspect of the high magical arts, as it is called in here, and he does give an explanation as to why it's called in that in this book. I don't know if that's the same reason that other people use it as the high magical arts. Not really looking into that definition and why people use it, but yeah, I like that definition, and I can kind of abide that. Um, anyway, the whole point of me underlying this and talking about this is because he points on the use of, or the assistance of spiritual entities. Now, that is not something that is required of you whenever you are doing any type of magical working. I just want to make that clear. Now, the part that I do want to say is that whenever you are incorporating spiritual entities, whether they are a familiar or whether they are ancestors or they are deities, gods and goddesses, and angels, what have you, whenever you are incorporating those entities into your practice, into your spell work and whatnot, they can give them a little bit more of a boost. They can step back. They can look at things in multiple ways and see where the ripples go, as I like to say quite often. They can see where those ripples go. They can see how it will affect one thing, then another, and then another. And they have a more um, disconnected view of everything. They have a more, I don't want to say omniscient view, but sort of an omniscient type of view where they can just kind of take that and just like let's use my phone for example. You can look at the phone just like this, but spirit might look at it, where they can turn it and manipulate it in such a way that they can see all the different angles and how everything will be affected one way or another. So, working with deity or with spirit worker or spiritual partners, um, it might be more beneficial in those instances. Now, if you're doing something like, oh, okay, I want to do a self love type of ritual, I wouldn't necessarily say that's something that you need to call on deity for. Now, I will say that I have called on Pan whenever, basically coming out to myself that, Pan is a very sexually charged individual, and having Pan as a relationship or as a working partner, and coming to terms with that and what that means for me and whatnot, it was something that very much helped me. So it can help you on like self-love and self-caring and your self-expression and whatnot, but it is not always needed. I also want to say that I hear Jelly at the door. Let me go ahead and pause this real quick. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Jelly is now in here, and she's happy. So I want to move on to page 243, where he says, some people are very successful using either system. In this one, he's talking about positive affirmations or creative visualization. Most people practicing one system or the other have only a modicum of success. And I disagree with this. There are many people that have very successful visualization techniques that help them in their practice. There are also people that do vision boards and positive affirmations. They'll stick it on little sticky notes on their bathroom mirror, and they'll say their positive affirmations, and it works very well for them. It's one of those things that, to borrow a line from Bill W., it works if you work it. So I would have to disagree with him on this, um, on this part here, that you have a modicum of success. I think you can have a lot of success if you continue to work that type of modality. If that is something that tends to work for you or is easier for you, then I would say keep on going with it. I am one that I am very good at visualization. I'm not so great at saying it, but I can visualize things very easily in my mind's eye and whatnot, and I am very good at it. I've been that way my entire life, ever since I was a wee little child. Um, I have been good at visualization. Now, whenever it comes to positive affirmations, not so great. But the visualizing of, hey, this is what I envision for myself, and if I practice that more or put more energy towards it, and use it in more of a ritualistic fashion, or in um, a in an energetic fashion where I send energy to that to make it a reality, I would probably be a lot better off. I would probably be one of these people that have success with visualization. So anyway, I just wanted to say I disagree with him on that. Also on 243, just like a sentence down from that, both I and many of my students have found the Kabbalistic system to be far more magically effective than either creative visualization or positive affirmation by themselves. Okay. And my note here is, do not discount these other systems if they work. It's one of those things, like, if it's working for you, fantastic, do it more. If it's not working for you, find something that does work for you and go for it. If they don't work for you, then find something that does. But I wouldn't say that, you know, they're, I wouldn't discount them as not effective systems. I just flatly deny that. I disagree, sir. Anyway, moving on. Also on 243, towards the bottom of the page, remember, we are always creating on the astral plane, whether we are consciously trying to do so. Yes, absolutely, I agree with that. If we are putting something on the astral plane, or we are constantly in our mind saying something like, I don't deserve love, I don't deserve love. If you are constantly saying that, it's going to end up happening. If you are constantly saying to yourself, I feel comfortable in my own skin, I feel comfortable in my own skin. If you continue that as a mantra, it will create something on the astral plane that will start to manifest and carry over to the physical plane. Moving on to page 244. First, there is an important cosmic law that forbids waste. And I don't agree with this. Uh, though I think we do need to prioritize. And by that I mean, um, he says here, where was it? And I didn't underline it. He gives the example of a car here. If you cannot afford food on which to live, yet you use either or both of the systems so far described, in an attempt to obtain a car, you may not achieve this goal. This is because you would really not be able to use the car effectively. You can't afford food. How will you be able to afford fuel, oil, insurance, tires, brakes, etc.? It would be a waste for you to own a car, and cosmic law forbids waste. I disagree. Um, but I do want to say that if you are doing doing spell work for a car, but you cannot afford food, maybe prioritize and see which thing you need first. Prioritize what spell work you're doing at what time. get the big issues that are immediate, get those taken care of before you do the ones that are not uh, necessities or are not needs that must be met. Do those ones in the future, but take care of your immediate things immediately. Make sense? I think so. Moving on, also on the same page, he has the Kabbalistic system of mental magic, and I basically have here, this is the secret before it was the secret. Um, so yeah, visualizing and positive affirmations, all that good stuff. It's just by a different name, and I'm okay with it. Moving on to page 245. I wanted to look at the box that he has there, the SMART goals versus dumb goals, or the SMART goals slash dumb goals. Okay, so specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time frame. These are the things that you use in order to set goals and whatnot. And this is still taught as a method today. This has been something that I didn't know who came up with it and when it was developed, but it was in the 1950s. The Practice of Management by Peter Drucker. And I think I've heard the name before. It sounds familiar, but it's probably in one of those like motivational books that I've read before. But yeah, it is still something that is taught today, that if you are setting goals for yourself, make them specific goals, make them measurable. How will you know when you got there? Make them something that's attainable. Don't say that you want to be a pilot, if you have no interest in actually flying, or if you have no interest in learning how to fly, something like that. Be realistic about it. Are you going to, and I think he uses the example here of being a PGA golfer in your 60s or 70s. Maybe you might want to just rein that back a little bit. Not saying that's impossible, just saying it's not very practical. Be realistic in it, and set a time frame. When will this be completed? If you don't know, or if you don't have in your mind when you want to have this completed by, and if it's a realistic time frame, then how will you know whether or not you were successful? And I think these are good, good rules, like good guidelines, let's say. They are good guidelines to have whenever you are doing any type of goal setting or intention setting. So I just wanted to point at that this is still something that if you take any type of self-improvement type of course, I think we've done that in the military before, like, hey, you want to achieve your goals, here's how, that type of thing. And they use this system because it is a system that, if you think through all of those steps, it does make sense, and you can actually attain goals that way. For those military-minded people, don't think that you're going to be a general whenever you are an E1 and you have spent 3 days, out of basic training. Don't think that it's going to happen overnight. Don't set those type of goals, because it's not realistic. It's not something that's going to be attainable. There are just some things that are simply the way they are, and you need to follow through with those in order to, if you want to be a general someday, it's cool, could happen, definitely. But there are steps that you need to take, and putting those into bite-sized chunks to attain those goals is more realistic and more advantageous to you as an individual, because you will actually attain them if they are realistic and whatnot. Anyway, let's move on to page 246. He says, and this is about the time that I started listening on the app and whatnot. So yeah, I've kind of just like bracketed and everything. I didn't write any notes because it was going in the background as I was just following along. Anyway, he says, let's say you want an expensive book on magic, and you use the Kabbalistic system of mental magic to obtain it. But then, instead of saving your money, you spend it on some CDs or MP3s, back in the day when MP3s really cost you money, or going to a club or a movie back when you could actually go into a movie theater and it was not dangerous to do so. I.e. COVID. This is a message to your unconscious that you do not really want to achieve your goal of getting the book. Your unconscious will comply with this and help you achieve the goal of not getting the book. And the reason I had that is because if you have a goal and you really want to obtain that goal, you need to have a narrow focus of what am I doing in order to get me that goal. Right now, I have a goal of having, and I have it written in my planner, I think it's 5,000 items on eBay by the end of the year. I'm at almost 1,300. It's going to take a lot of late nights staying up and listing of items, photographing and listing items in order for me to obtain that goal. So, is it a realistic goal? Could happen, definitely, absolutely. Something that could definitely happen. But if I keep on taking days off like this, where I'm sitting around not getting a shower and, having my hair all mussed up and sitting on Ancestry.com, I'm not going to obtain those goals, obviously. I would be then putting into the world saying, hey, universe, I really don't want to obtain this goal. I just kind of want it to be a thing and I want you to do it. And that's not how things work. I need to put in the act of taking the steps to achieve these goals. So, yeah, be careful what you do and what kind of signals you're sending to the universe, because the universe is just going to say, okay, that's the way you want it. We're going to alter your goal. This is your new goal. You'd rather be a couch potato, Rich. Anyway, moving on. He also says, let it come to you as it will. Don't try to dictate how something should come to you. You must use all of your abilities to obtain it. Okay. For this one, I wanted to state that because absolutely, whenever you are doing any type of spell work, the universe is going to figure out how to get it to you. I also want to stress, think on this, meditate on this. Don't just do spells at a whim because you need something right that moment. Think of how it will affect other individuals, either you yourself or those around you. How is it going to affect those around you? Where do all the ripples go? Because it will affect somebody else and then affect somebody else. And, you don't want to dictate to the universe how you, like, say, with money. You don't want to dictate to the universe how you will get money, but you do want to dictate to the universe, I wish there to be harm to nobody else. And really thinking through the way that this could manifest is something that can mitigate the loss of others. He also does suggest in here a couple times, I'm probably going to speak on it again, is doing divination before your spell work. Now, I don't do that as much because I spend so much in the contemplative state of just thinking through the spell work and how it could affect and where the ripples go and all that, that I don't seem to need to do it as much as far as divination for spell work. I'll do divination for other things, but whenever it comes to spell work, not as much. And that's solely because I spend so much time thinking about it and thinking through things and how it could affect another individual. But if you're doing a spell more on a whim than I do, because my spells, could take, several days, weeks, months to actually formulate and think through and decide whether or not it is advantageous for me to do that. Yes, spell work for me is a long drawn out process. And then there's sometimes whenever a positive or a little affirmation on a sticky note and setting a blaze is something that I do. But that's more for, okay, let's break a barrier or something like that. They're for different reasons. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on, because I'm not going to get down the rabbit hole of what spell work dictates what, but, use your own caution the way you do. Anyway, moving on to page 247. As long as someone defines what he or she or they means by a term, that is fine with me. And I wanted to underline this because he does very well on defining the terms. And he has in here, let's see. You may have heard of other ways of differentiating types of magic. Some people use multiple colors. Others give different definitions for the meaning of white, gray, or black magic. And blah, 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 all that stuff. We've gone over this before. I don't like the term black magic because of what it denotes racially. Black magic being bad and white magic being good. You see the racial tension there? And then we have gray magic, which, aliens. But let's not talk about Bruno. We're gonna move on from that. But I do like that he says, as long as if you are defining the terms, yes, I am there for it. And I am fully supportive of whenever you're discussing something, please give me a set of terms that you are using, or at least tell me what you are meaning behind a specific term, because I may know it as something else. I recently had a friend of mine ask me some questions about astrology, which I am admittedly freaking terrible at. And she's sitting there asking me questions about, have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard of that? I'm like, if I did, I might know it by a different name, because that does not ring any bells for me. And turns out I wasn't exactly sure of the thing that she was talking about. I've heard something of that instance, but yeah, overall, it's not something that I'm overly familiar with, so I'm not surprised that I have not heard the term that she was discussing, and right now I can't remember what the term was because I'm a horrible astrology student. Let me take a drink. Not sponsored by Pepsi. Pepsi, if you want me to sponsor your stuff, let me know. I'll hawk your shit. Moving on to page 248. Every culture had, has, and will have its own magic. And this brings up the thought of cultural appropriation, because there is a big part of cultural appropriation that was going around, especially back in like 2017, 2018. Everybody was talking about it. And my stance of cultural appropriation has been pretty consistent for the most part of, I will take something from another culture. Yes, absolutely. I'm currently developing something in my brain thing, incorporating ancestor work, and yeah, it definitely comes from multiple cultures. Not gonna lie. Am I appropriating that for my practice and developing it in my practice? Is it going to be the same? No. Is it going to be sort of like it? Kind of. Jelly, stop it. You know better. She's using something as a scratching post that she's not supposed to. Anyway, am I going to be using some of the aspects of different cultures? Yes. Do I mean any disrespect from it? Absolutely not. And I think the main part of it is if you are respectful of the culture that it comes from and saying, hey, this isn't exactly what I want to do, but I want to do something like it because I find the beauty in it. As long as if you're honoring that, I think you're fine. If you're going, hey, I'm going to take this entire practice that you have and I'm going to use it and have zero honor and respect for it, then yes, I have an issue with that. That is bad cultural appropriation. I also wanted to say that many of us out there are not full-blooded one thing or another. I mean, take a DNA test. I will be doing one in the future. Going hand in hand with the ancestry and whatnot. But I will be taking one in the future, and I can guarantee you I am a melting pot of Eastern European, Middle Eastern, and probably something else mixed in there. I have ancestors from, let's see, England, Dutch, Wales, or England, Holland, Wales, Ireland, Syria, and Germany, all this the countries up that way. Anyway, I know that I have a lot of European ancestry. I know that I have Middle Eastern ancestry, and it will be quite interesting what comes out of all of that. But we can't say that I am wholly this, so therefore this is my culture and this is all of my culture, and how dare you use any of it, whenever I might have some of that cultural background within me, or within my family, and within a practice of my family that you don't even know about. So let's not be quick to judge. And you know even if people feel called to a different culture that is nowhere near what they are born into or whatnot, does not really mean that they are disrespecting the cultural significance of that practice. You know, it just rings true for them. And how are you going to say that they should not do it? That is just baffling to me. Anyway, getting off of that soapbox, I also want to touch on also on 248. According to one respected author, Raphael Paty, the ancient Hebrews worshipped a goddess along with their god, and even had an altar to her in the first and second temples up to the year 70 CE. And this is something that I've heard of before. I haven't done much research on it, but I have heard it in several different ways. That yes, ancient Jewish cultures did have, or ancient Hebrews did have a goddess figure, and up until a certain point, so did Christians. So therefore, the whole "thou shalt not have any other god before me," yeah, bull. Anyway. Moving on, also on this same page, it is important to point out that there's no quality judgment or moral judgment based upon the terms high magic and low magic. And I want to make this an important part, because the way that it sounds whenever you say high magic or low magic kind of seems like you're saying this magic is better than this magic. And that's not the case. The whole part of high magic has a history of it, and the low magic has a history of it. And yeah, in our world today, high magic and low magic, to me, it's just all magic. So let's all use it and do what we need to do to get where we need to be. So yeah, he does give a nice little history breakdown here. I always appreciate a nice history breakdown. This was kind of a mixture of ancient and modern history, which I did appreciate. There were some things I did not know in there. Some of the things with Z Budapest that I didn't know. I do remember in 2007, whenever the VA finally approved the pentacle on the headstones and whatnot. That was a big deal in the military. Just to give you an update, the military still does have it where you can have it on your you can have Wicca and different religious faiths on your dog tags as well. It's not just Christian, Protestant, Catholic, all that stuff. It's not just one thing. It's like a list of 200 different faith-based systems that are on there, and they are more or less, how do I want to say this? More or less the more mainstream. You won't see Christo-Paganism on there. Yeah, it's just not a mainstream enough thing yet to have it on a dog tag. I have no preference on mine, to be quite honest. So, yeah, that's just where I sit. Anyway, moving on to 253. Today, talismans are used to draw things toward you. Their purposes include obtaining money, luck, health, or love. Amulets are used to keep things away. They protect from evil or bad luck and help keep one from ill health. My note on this is I've never heard a definition or a distinction between an amulet and a talisman, and if I have not remembered it. And I think I'm going to remember this one. It was a nice way of putting it, that it was easy for my brain thing to understand that, talismans are to bring things towards you, amulets keep things away. Yeah, and I like that definition. I think I'm going to keep with that. I should have I should start a little list of common definitions or common terms that I would like to use in an overarching sense. Next thing up is on 254. To a real magician, the important question is not whether it is high or low, but did it work? And this is the big thing that I'm saying whenever it comes to the visualization and positive affirmations versus if you're going to do a whole ritual and whatnot. Does it work? And that is the big thing for me. Is it working? Is your magic doing it what it needs to do, or doing what you want it to do? Is it working? If it works, who cares how you got there? You got there, baby, and keep on going. Move on to 256. Wow. I mean no disrespect by calling anybody baby, and I just want to make that as a disclaimer. I got caught up in the moment. Hallelujah. Uh, Moving on to 256. Every action that you take has its own consequences, which will come upon you whether you are prepared for them or not. And this is why I always tell people, watch where the ripples will go and examine those before you actually do your spell work. This is where he's saying to do divination before spell work, which he also says on the same page. Um, what should you have done first? Therefore, um, was a was a divination to see whether or not it would be a good idea to do the talisman, and what the outcome would be. By doing this, you can protect yourself from accidentally doing black magic and having to suffer the consequences. Again, this is what I was talking about before. Do your meditations, call on deity, get advice from your spirit guides and whatnot to see if that's where you need to be. I want to move on to 262, and the remember, this is whenever I was actually listening to this, so it was going quite fast. Um, in the section that he has, making a magical guardian, a small or large statue or object d'art makes a wonderful protective amulet, technically called a guardian, for a house or apartment. And this made me think of, I think it's Shinto, I do believe, and I could be mistaken. Please, somebody, if I am incorrect, please correct me down in the comments down below. Gives you a reason to comment down there if I'm incorrect or correct. Just let me know. Um, I believe it's in the Shinto religion or the Shinto practice. They actually have a spirit house outside of their dwelling. It's a little tiny house, looks kind of like a bird feeder almost, or what one would think would be a bird feeder, but it kind of looks like just a little like mini version of their house, and that is to house the spirit of the property, or the guardian of the property. And I absolutely love that. I would love to have something similar to that. But also, you have where people will make guardian spirits and like a golem of sorts, and they will put it at the entryway, and that will be the guardian of their home. The same thing with the mezuzah on the doorposts, or let's see, having a picture of a saint there, or blessing the doorposts with holy water or whatnot. Same concept of having this type of guardian spirit, or this type of effect at your doorway. Except in this instance, it is actually a statue. So kind of similar, kind of different. But that's what it made me think of, and I love how every every belief system has their own type of guardian of place, their own spirit protector, that kind of guards the home, and I'm there for it. And I kind of want to Um, where is it? Where is it? Hold on. In Devin Hunter's book, one thing that I want to do is make a guardian that he has in here, and I'm sorry, I'm flipping through trying to find where it is, but it's a sort of golem, but it's a little bit different. Let's see if I can find it. And I think I've shown it before on here too, so I mean it's not anything new if I can't find it, but I really want to find it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so yeah, that is the golem type of and you know what, I am not as pleased with this camera resolution lately. But yeah, that's the golem type of dude that Devin Hunter makes, and I actually just need to get some clay, some modeling clay for that. So I think I have everything else for it, and I kind of want to try that. So that's a piece of spell work that I want to try. But anyway, we're gonna move on to page 263, where he says, Budge claimed that the ideal Kabbalistic talisman had 4 sections: the appropriate magical name, appropriate biblical text, a special prayer that is similar in nature but not identical to types of invocations, the words Amen and Selah, each repeated 3 times. And I kind of put this because I wanted to have it as something to remember. Um, the next example that he gives on the talismans is a little way too involved. Like no letter may touch one another. Must be made in purity while fasting. You know, parchment specially prepared. All that stuff. That's a little too involved. But I think this type of talisman that is mentioned here in the first example, the appropriate magical name, appropriate biblical text, these are good guidelines that I would say would be good to follow. I don't think that it would be by any means the be all end all of what you need to do. I do apologize for that. That's my 5:30 alarm. Um, I don't think it's by any means anything that you absolutely have to do in order to have a successful magical practice or a successful talisman. Um, but I think that it is it is a good guideline. Anyway, moving on. On page 267, um, I have here a note just on this entire page because he's talking about numerology and whatnot. And he's talking about the Kabbalistic system and how you use the sounds rather than the actual letters. And I have a note here. I don't think I would want to use the Kabbalistic system of numerology. To me, whenever you are talking the the sound of a word, it is a lot more difficult, because some people say tomato and some people say tomato. The just for the record, I don't think anybody ever says tomato. I don't think anybody ever says potato. But you know, there are words that people say differently. Just look at, you know, paganism. How do you say athame? Is it athame? Athame? Yeah. There's a huge debate, and people will actually get into a fight over it. But we're not doing that here. Um, yeah. So I would just rather use the actual lettering. It was my point. Moving on to 271. Hold on, let me get a drink here. Um, let's see. He says, take a square and cut out a piece 3 inches by 5 inches, fold it in half, and staple or sew up the open ends. You will have a container that is the right size into which The charged talisman may be slipped. Don't sew or staple the top until after you have placed the talisman inside. A string may also be attached so that it can be worn as a necklace under your clothes. Uh, there is a simple reason why I bracketed that. Because to me, whenever you are talking, a oh, I think it was felt, wasn't it felt? Oh, geez, piece of paper. I want to say it was felt, but I could be mistaken. Now that I'm re-looking at this, um, yeah. Oh no, it is. Maybe it was. I don't know. Anyway, but whenever I was listening to this on the recording and whatnot, it made me actually think of the, oh geez, what is it? Oh, son of a gun. It's the thing that the Catholic people wear, but it's made of like wool. Oh geez. Oh my gosh. Now I can't remember what it's called. Hmm. It'll come to me. But it reminded me of that. And the purpose of wearing it was that if you wore it, then, you were, um, you would receive the promise from Mary that you would be protected and whatnot. Oh, son of a gun. You know what? I'm not even going to cut this out because this is embarrassing that I can't remember what this is called. Um, the sepulcher. Yeah, that's it. Son of a gun. Yeah. It reminded me of wearing one of those, except it goes like around and there's like two pieces to it, and they have like Mary on one, and they'll have like, the prayer or something on the other one. I was reading about it. I was really enthralled by reading about it, and I think doing something like that as a talisman, one on each side, would be kind of cool. Now, with the sepulchers, you're supposed to wear those at all times, except like whenever you're bathing or whatnot. And if you die with it on, and you have been, a pious person or whatever, then you get the promises. You get what was promised. But if I guess if you slip up or you don't have it on, you don't get it. It's weird. I don't necessarily agree with that. But if you have a talisman with it and whatnot, I think that would be a cool suggestion to do. You do like one on each side, ones that complement each other, and then you can just like slip it over, and they kind of stay there. Anyway, just something that I thought of whenever I was reading that. Okay, moving on to 275. He says, however, you will never be a true magician if you can, oh, I'm sorry, if all you can do is copy what others have done before you. It is far better to design your own talismans from scratch. This is the way the ancient Kabbalists did it, and it is the way that you can do it too. Therefore, I strongly urge you to ignore talismans you have seen presented elsewhere and create your own for now. Later, you can copy or borrow as you will. And I am a big proponent of do your own spells. Like, create your own spells and whatnot. You know what? It is great to have a book of 5,000 spells. It is fantastic to have that. But you know what? I would rather somebody, you know, write down their own book of 5,000 spells, a spell for everything. Why not? You can do it. One book that I would suggest, hold on. Oh, son of a gun. One book that I would suggest if you have never written spells before or written your magic, is a book by Richard Webster. Another Rich that, we're just so intelligent. But Richard Webster, How to Write Your Own Write Your Own Magic, and this is the hidden power in your words. Fantastic book. I absolutely love this little tiny book, and it's not a horribly long book either. I think it's, hold on, I'm gonna get there because he has a lot of appendices to it. Uh, Including the afterword, it's 216 pages. this is not a hard to read book. I love Richard Webster's writing because it is such an easy read. And as I've said before, I'm not the best reader or the fastest reader. Actually made it through that book pretty easily. And I think I might do a review on that. Like maybe I'll do a witchy book club on that one in the future, just because it is something like, maybe I'll do it on as a little offshoot video or something. I don't know. Maybe we'll do that. I'll think about it. I'll consider it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below if you've gotten this far. Um, but yeah, I would definitely suggest to people, write your own spells down. Don't rely on other people's spells. Don't rely on other people's correspondences. Their correspondence may not jive well with you at all. So these are just some things to consider. One thing that I've always had in the back of my mind is, you're doing it wrong if you don't do it this way. And if I if I could have gotten past that earlier on in my practice, it would have been a heck of a lot easier for me to actually have a more developed practice now. Um, anyway, let me move on. He also says here, remember, anyone can copy anything or follow a few rules, but magic is more than just copying and learning rules. Yeah, it is. And I think that takes us to the end of the chapter here. And what I want to say on that is that, yeah, there are some kind of loosely based, hard and fast rules. But for the most part, whenever you were talking spirituality and magic and being a magical being and whatnot, there are no real rules. You are making your own way. One thing that I was thinking about the other day, and this is a little behind the curtain type thing, is for the church. I'm like, you know what? Um, do are whenever we're talking about a Christo-Pagan church and whatnot, are we using the same saints as the Catholic Church? Are we honoring those saints? Do we come up with our own saints? Do we honor the Saint Raymond Buckland? Do we canonize our own individuals? Can we do that? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, and this is one of my car conversations that I have with myself, which are just so enthralling that y'all need to be there one day just to listen to how I vocalize everything. But I said to myself, do we give honor to these individuals? Can we canonize them? And I stopped for a second from what I was saying, and I said, hold up. This is our church. We can do whatever the hell we want. Pun kind of intended. We can do whatever we want with regards to canonizing our own saints. We can adopt saints from one faith or another. We can canonize, Donald Michael Craig, Saint Donald, the patron saint of modern magic, the Kabbalistic arts. We can canonize who we want to canonize and make them patron saints, because I think ultimately they are there beyond the veil to help us, as well as our guides and deities and whatnot. They are there to help us along, especially somebody like Donald Michael Craig, which he gave so many, or he did so much in terms of coming up with ways of teaching individuals, that I think he would be there for assisting the magical practitioner, and would just be there for them, just waiting to be called on and whatnot. Scott Cunningham is another example. I think, on the other side, I don't think Scott is just sitting there, just lounging about on a beach somewhere. I don't think that he is. I think he is there kind of like, hey, I, I'm kind of a, teacher of Wicca and whatnot, and I would love to help you if you would just ask me to come. And I think that if you call on him, he probably would show up and be like, hey, Wicca as I know it, this is what I would do, and this and that and whatever. And I think he would be open to helping. There are certain individuals I wouldn't want to call on, such as Gerald Gardner. Kind of seems a little kind of hard nosed. Um, Aleister Crowley. I would not jive with his personality. Not that I would say that he would be a horrible person to have in circle, but yeah, I from the things I've seen, probably don't jive with his personality that much. But there are certain individuals, certainly, that I would welcome with open arms into my circle and ask for guidance from. So yeah, these are things that I was thinking of whenever I was thinking of, there being rules, especially that last line that I read there. And it kind of jives with the conversation that I was having with myself in a car about a week ago. So it's like, yeah, we can make our own saints if we want. Who says we can't? Um, I certainly don't say we can't. So anyway, that's all that I have. Little bit of ramblings there, a lot of bit of ramblings. I'm gonna go ahead and go now before my next alarm goes off. Remember to hit that like, subscribe, comment, share if it's available for you, or excuse me, if it's safe for you to do so. With all that, that has been lesson 7 of Modern Magic, the 12 lessons in the high magical arts by Donald Michael Craig. Again, link below if you don't have your copy. Um, that's all that I have for today. Join me on Wednesday for a Witchy Wednesday. I don't know which herb we are discussing, herb or resin that we are discussing, but I will pick something fun. Anyway, hopefully it'll be fun. Maybe. Now I've put all this pressure on me. And then join me for, on Saturday, join me for lesson 8. Yeah, we're kind of doing these back to back. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Until next time, may you have love, hugs, and ladybugs. Bye.